In this video, we're going to be looking at part 2 of the IELTS speaking test. Specifically, we're going to be thinking about the 1-minute preparation time that the examiner gives you in this part of the test. We're going to be thinking about how to best use that time, how to kind of think about that time that the examiner is giving you, and how to use it effectively so you can improve your speaking in this part of the test. So let's get straight on with it. Really, I'm going to go through a few different pieces of advice and try to make it as clear as possible so you can take that advice and use it in your own practice time. So the first thing, and probably quite an obvious thing, is that 1 minute is a really short amount of time. It's not long. 1 minute, especially when you're in the actual test, opposite the examiner, kind of in the speaking test, it's going to feel like a really, really short amount of time. You're probably going to feel a little bit nervous. Maybe you're going to be panicking a little bit, and that time is going to go very quickly. So you need to get used to this amount of time. Make yourself comfortable preparing a part 2 answer before you go into the test, using that 1 minute to do that. It's really not easy. And you've got to remember that it really is not a long time. It's a very short amount of time, and you must get used to it before you go into the test room. The second bit of advice is that a simple list is probably faster and easier than a diagram or mind map. So you remember when they give you your topic card and give you the preparation time for part 2, you're going to have a piece of paper and a pencil so you can make notes. Now, different students make different notes in different ways, and there is kind of no rule for this, but in my experience, the best thing to do is write a nice, simple list rather than writing a kind of mind map or brainstorming your ideas. This is just because writing a simple list will give a nice logical structure to your answer. Sometimes with a mind map, students might kind of speak about one thing and then jump to another thing and miss a point that they wanted to make. Whereas if you're looking at a list, it's easier to kind of go through it kind of one by one, making sure you speak on each one as much as you can before you move on to another. But of course, if you find another way kind of more effective for you, then you've got to remember what I'm saying here isn't a rule. It's not something you must do. I've just found in my experience, a simple list works better for most students. So the next bit of advice is, again, maybe quite an obvious thing, but you need to decide on your topic as quickly as possible. So when you get that topic card and it's asking you to describe something, you don't want to waste too much time thinking about what you're going to talk about. I've had this before though, where students, especially when they start practicing, will take maybe half of this 1 minute preparation time just to decide. You've really got to do this, decide, make the decision in probably the first 5 seconds or so, which sometimes is not easy. If that topic card is something you haven't thought about before, the topic on that topic card, then it's going to be difficult maybe to come up with an idea. This is why building up your ideas before you go into the test is really important. For those common categories of topics that come up, you think of things that you could talk about, and then hopefully when you go into the test, you've got something kind of fresh in your mind that you can think of very quickly when the examiner gives you that topic card. And then you can spend most of that 1 minute making notes rather than wasting time making that decision. So that's the next point. If we move on to the next bit of advice, this is to try to write at least one key idea for each part of the question. What I mean here is you get this topic card in part 2 where you're going to get about 4 different cues or questions or parts of the question. They give you these 4 cues so you can come up with ideas, and it helps you to speak more. What you've got to make sure is you have at least one idea for each of those cues so you don't miss any of them out. If you do miss one of those points, it's not the end of the world. They're going to still listen to your speaking and give you a score for your speaking ability. But I think it's really best that you've got those ideas, because if you don't have enough ideas in part 2, then you're just going to stop speaking. Doesn't matter how good your English is, you're going to run out of ideas. So at least one idea for each of those cues, and more than that if possible. Okay, the next bit of advice is, again, this should be pretty obvious, but you should not be writing sentences when you're taking notes. And also, you should not waste time erasing or kind of using a rubber to erase your mistakes. This is a big waste of time. If you've made a mistake, if you've written something down that you don't want to be there, you don't want to talk about anymore, put a line through it. Okay? Don't waste your time getting a rubber out, erasing, blowing it all away. This is a massive waste of time. Also, of course, full sentences. Writing full sentences, big waste of time. Okay? It takes quite a long time to write a full sentence. You've only got 1 minute. You need to write down those key words, those key ideas. Now, I know a lot of students are worried about making grammatical mistakes, so they feel like they want to write down those full sentences. But there's really no point in this, because you're not going to be able to write enough down to fill that 2 minutes. So it's just the key ideas that you're writing down in that 1 minute preparation time. Okay, the next bit of advice is to try to use a topic that you have already prepared. Now, this is all about kind of building up those ideas, preparing kind of ideas before you go into the test. You should always try to use one of those ideas you prepared when you're in the test room. Hopefully you've prepared enough ideas that one of them will fit with the topic card that you get. I wouldn't, if I were you, try to come up with a brand new idea. Even if you feel like, oh, I could talk about this thing though, the chances are you're not going to be able to speak as well about something you haven't prepared for as you could with something you have prepared for. So try to stick with ideas that you have prepared for. The next point, and some of you might be quite happy about this, is to forget about grammar. What you need to do is focus on answering the question. Focus on your ideas and explaining those ideas. Now, of course, grammar is important. It's something the examiner is listening to, but focusing on that grammar is really going to slow you down. It's probably going to make your speech less coherent and more difficult for the examiner to follow. And chances are you'll probably make more grammatical mistakes by focusing on grammar. So do not focus on grammar. Focus on answering the question. Focusing on explaining your ideas. Right, we're nearly there. This is the final bit of advice, and that is fast preparation is a skill that you can practice, and really something that you have to practice. You don't get good at using this 1 minute preparation time just by listening to my advice in this video. You need to practice. The more you practice using that limited 1 minute preparation time, the better you will get at doing it. It's not something that happens by magic. All of these things involve practice and a bit of hard work, but it's not too much. I mean, you could try kind of training yourself by making notes for a few different topics every day, or maybe just one topic card per day. And you could practice using that 1 minute preparation time and then speaking for 2 minutes. So there we go. That's the advice that I'm giving for using that 1 minute preparation time. But again, like I said, it's different for different students. You have to go through the process of practicing yourself and find out what's best for you. But a lot of the things I've been saying today, I've found are useful for the majority of the students that I have. And really, I hope they're useful for you too. Remember, if you have found this video useful and you've enjoyed it, then don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. There we go. Thanks for watching the video and see you again in the next one.